Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be looking at the first progress report of Godsend in development. We're going to be checking out the battle system, how its core systems work, what features it'll have, and what features already exist. Please look forward to it. Do note that these graphics do not represent the final product in any way. This showcase is simply for mechanical purposes. Anyways, let's get into it. Start off with the core systems. Godsend is fully networked and multiplayer supported. If you were to join on a client and a different client were to join, they have different cameras, actions, movements, everything that syncs together with all the other clients. This will apply to battles as well. Let's take a look at that. Much like in Wartune, a battle is initiated when touching an opposing enemy. Later, animations, transitions, etc. will be much more seamless, and camera angles will also be different in the final release. For now, it'll look a bit strange, but this is what we're working with, just for now. When approaching an enemy, they will automatically track towards your location, and if you break their line of sight or go too far away, they will return to their original location. Running into this enemy, or running into any enemy, will produce a battle based off of their settings, which I will show later on in the video. For now, let's encounter this enemy straight in front of us in a one-on-one fight. Immediately upon touching this enemy, we are transported into a different scene entirely, a battle scene that will be customized based on where you encounter an enemy and any other circumstances involved with the encounter. As you can see, both the enemy and the player are going one after another, just doing basic auto attacks. That's how I've set it up at the moment. Just like in Wartune, your player, if no input is registered, will perform an auto attack that does low amounts of damage and builds up a slight amount of mana as long as you're not already at the 100 cap. After 2 attacks, I've set this enemy to do a much slower but more powerful heavy attack that causes them to move slower. Movement speed is a big deal in this game. Skills, when I click skill 1, this will trigger a quick casting, fast moving skill that allows me to get in another hit before this enemy even attacks me back. The core combat loop of Godsend will revolve around you making different builds out of different skills and putting together different equipment loadouts to either make your character fast, medium, slow, or take advantage of all the new combat options that you've been given in Godsend. Let's take a look at that. For now, let's end the battle. I'll use a heavy-hitting skill that will end the battle in a single strike. After defeating an enemy, they disappear from the overworld and cease to be. They'll be there when I reboot the server, though. If you were to lose to a group of enemies or an enemy, their enemy would stay there and prepare for the next battle, essentially becoming refreshed. Let's try out some of the newer mechanics of Godsend, things that separate it from Wartune and basic combat. I've refreshed the enemy, so let's challenge him again. The first thing I'd like you all to notice is that these grid objects, which are simple representations of the places that the player or enemies can stand on right now, are interactable. Upon clicking one of them, my player, as long as they are not getting attacked or otherwise being interrupted by something, is able to move between the slots, resetting the timer of his auto attack countdown and allowing him to simply reposition himself on the battlefield. This would apply to all players in a given battle. Enemies, for now, do not currently have this feature, but they could utilize it. Moving around does not save you, though, from enemy attacks, unless they are specifically made. Let's look at how this new movement system affects combat. I've edited the data of this enemy and refreshed its encounter. As I was trying to think of how to utilize movement in a reactive and responsive but meaningful way, I decided on 2 extra features to add to this combat system. Let's take a look. Attacks can now be marked as telegraphed. If you move out of the way in time, the enemy will strike at open air, or do whatever their skill does. If you stand still in the telegraph or overcommit and use a skill, which won't allow you to move, the enemy will strike you. I've added this skill right now that he's using to have a burn effect that leaves a trail, that would leave a trail of fire on you and damage you over time. Right now, The flow is fairly simple. I do an attack, I have time to move. If I move out of the way of his telegraphed attack, I'll not take any damage. However, I'd like you to consider what this means in an actual battle, where players are using ultimate abilities, transformations, possibly even in an entire team. It would be very, very easy to overcommit against an enemy and lock yourself into a bad position, or strategically take the hit and use that time to cast a very powerful skill. Of course, I've extended this even further so that it's even better for team-based play, bosses, and other mechanics not featured in base Wartune. Let's take a look. I've now edited this enemy to do two different things. Firstly, he targets all slots in the front row now, irrespective of any player, if any player is standing there or not. This means I now have the capability, or the system has the capability, to script enemy attacks to target certain areas. Likewise, player attacks can also use this same feature. In accordance with this, you may be noticing the extra sort of pink, orangish ring that's appearing on the ground. That is what I'll term a lingering effect. I've set this enemy to deal their burn effect that they did on me before to the ground now. So, if a player were to step onto these tiles, they would burn themselves. I'll show you now. Even if the hit doesn't exactly hit me, if I step onto it, I'll begin ticking down with a burn effect. If I step into the where the actual skills are landing, I'll take damage and also be applied with the burn effect. This is big for multiplayer and boss encounters. Bosses and players alike can now zone you. You can concoct team formations using zoning to push enemies out of powerful formations, such as having their tanks up in the front, and maybe bring their mages out to the front, push their tanks back, force them to reconfigure. As you can now change formation in battle, all of this is completely possible. What makes this system so powerful is that it's open-ended. I can set all these things to be telegraphed, to set lingering effects, to do anything very modularly. I'll show the code soon enough, but for now, think about the implications for the battle system and how this may positively affect the strategy involved in an actual battle. Of course, all of this is completely scalable with multiple players and multiplayer in mind. Taking a look, if I join with quite a few clients, for now, let's just put it at 4. Obviously, each client has their own camera, all the things I talked about earlier. However, if I take a client and put them into a battle, they'll disappear from the other screens. There's a little bit of physics goofiness that I've got to fix up as that enemy just slides away. I've also set all the enemies to have similar attacks with each other, just so I can move out of the way of them and not be in any danger of having my players die while I'm recording. But each battle has different setups with technically different enemies, and each one is it exists in its own independent state to the other battles. So, as you can see, each battle is not interfering with the other ones. The only weirdness going on is those guys over there. Now, I could also join up on any of these battles. I believe this guy is the 1 versus 1 going on down here. If I knock into him, oops, I joined in right as I was getting attacked. Either way, I've joined this battle with 2 players, meaning all of these systems are completely scalable and modular. Everything works together exactly as it should in multiplayer. Everything handles itself. Lastly, to show how easy it is to use this system and create bigger levels and bigger products, one of the biggest parts of making a level is setting up, of course, the assets, which includes the enemies. How hard is it to make an enemy? Well, let's take a look at the process I've set up. This took a while, so I'm pretty proud of it. But all we do is we go into the enemy script here, and we grab this battle enemy prefab, the field enemy prefab. Drag it into the scene, and on it, we can select an enemy encounter data thing here. This is one of these objects. It's called a scriptable object that I can create. When I go into it, I can designate each enemy, where they exist in terms of formation, what their stats are, if they're a boss, and their skill set. The skills are equally modular, consisting of just a few that I've made for now that I was showing off. Each of those having stats that tie into them, direct effects, lingering effects, targeting types, telegraphs, everything that an attack would need to have. And you simply slide those onto the enemy, encounter data. After that, with each enemy, you can either duplicate them or make another. So in this goblin encounter one, I've got a few goblins, that's just what I've called them, and then one orc with different stats, who moves a little bit slower, has a little more HP, but I didn't really show that off today. They also have a list for custom traits you can set, and to even go on this further, each skill, if we look at the player's skills, they're also able to be modded in the exact same way. It's all using the same scripts. The player skills can be applied with their own effects as well, which all come from the same usage of a scriptable object. So we have the same setup. Everything is super modular, super expandable, and not hard-coded at all. So this is the perfect springboard for making a full game out of. The battle system's foundations are already complete. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed the first progress report for Godsend. I'm excited to deliver more on the next one.